The magic of Christmas never ends.
I think he's like the richest guy in town. I have an idea. We buy rich clothes and we spend the weekend in his mansion. Who's with me?
This is never going to work.
Watch me jingle bell dance the night away. The fireplace is burning.
They're behaving very peculiar.
Lights turning and watch me jingle bell.
We have a big problem.
Put down the ball.
You have got to be kidding me!
Ladies, gentlemen, this is a historic mansion, not a playground.
All right, gang, let's go.
I hate that Kentucky Joe. I hate his entire circus of fools.
Here's Christmas.
Jingle bell dance, jingle bell dance, jingle bell dance, jingle bell dance.
What the hell is going on here?
I'm just here for the cookies.
Watch me jingle bell dance the night away.
There's one thing that I've learned is that you need to be with the people who love you the most on Christmas.
Watch me jingle bell dance the night away. I'll still keep the party running all night, all night, all night.
I would appreciate a tip.
Don't eat yellow snow. Hell of a tip. Always helped me through life.
I've done it before. Yeah, this is the 97 Player's Handbook, which I'm sure you're familiar
Yes,
with.
I am familiar with that one.
I've got the Dungeons Master's book over in my other room as well. So, but I saw that because I was looking at your bio and I was like, oh, this is a man of many traits. So
I was working at TSR when they were doing 2.5.
yeah, sure.
And so,
Yeah, so yeah, that's yeah, because this is 97, so this is probably around that time.
yeah, let's see. God, it's so far away. I think it was 93 through 95 I worked at
Oh,
TSR.
okay, sure. Yeah, that's when a lot of my friends and myself were getting into it too. So, just another of many connections that I have here with you today, sir. Whit, I appreciate you taking time to stop by and talk about not only the film that we're going to talk about today, but I hoped we could also talk about your other film that just recently came out. I mean, you had like
Sure.
back-to-back films came out, but the one we're going to talk about, I'd like to talk about first, though, is a holiday one, Homeless for the Holidays.
Yes.
Which I didn't get a chance to drop my review yet, but I did get a chance to watch it yesterday, and I kind of wish I would have watched it today because it was a very lighthearted film, and I could have used some of that.
Oh yeah. It's today's a sad day for about half of the U.S. But
So I could have used a little happy film. But before we dive into that, how are you doing, sir?
well, I'm doing fine. I'm actually in the middle of writing a very large fantasy series
Ooh,
that I'm looking at working on at the end of next year.
sure.
So, but my whole purpose was to get several movies out so that when I went to investors, I could go, okay, before you gamble a whole lot of money on a fantasy series, which is everyone wants me to do because I used to work for TSR.
Right. Yeah.
There are actually only like about 150 of us left. I mean, they got bought by Wizards of the Coast. So I was one of the youngest people working there. So it was
Sure.
a lot of old people. But every time I go and meet with investors, they're like, why aren't you doing fantasy? Why haven't you done fantasy?
Sure.
And fantasy's not as easy to do as people think it is.
No, especially on an indie film budget, it's not easy to pull off convincingly. I've seen it done, but you do need a little bit of money behind it to
You need just a little bit, or resources, right?
or
So-
resource or both. Yeah, both help
Yep.
quite a bit.
So getting back to everything, I've just released 2 movies. I have 6 already done,
Wow.
including Unnatural 2 has been filmed.
Oh,
And,
that's exciting.
And so we are working on those while I'm getting ready to ramp up my next film that I'm shooting called Smokey, which I'll be shooting in January 4th. And of course, if you haven't realized yet, every movie I make is a lot different than the other ones. I just don't like I don't like doing the same thing twice, even though I'm doing sequels for Unnatural. So.
Well, Unnatural leads itself felt like it leads itself to a series. The that you have there with Al Snow playing a wonderful character. Your names for Unnatural, I loved the gun the gun names for them. And I saw a lot of the cast from Unnatural was also in your Homeless for the Holidays film as well. So are you kind of sticking with this cast and crew with the rest
Well,
with a lot of your projects coming up, or?
we do something a little bit different than most other companies. Almost all my main actors are instructors, and what we do is we're doing a type of. I get about half of my financing from distributors, investors, things like that. The other half I get from students. And what we do is we run an actors retreat at the same time that we're filming, right?
Okay.
And so the actors come on, and for the whole time we're shooting, they're on set. Every day they're getting a minimum of 2 hours of training. We cover everything like how to be on set, what's everybody, what your roles are, who to talk to, who not to talk to. Here's what SAG's like. Here's what it is like working on independent movies. And we call that format education equity.
Oh,
So
nice.
what happens is instead of like pay to plays where you just pay and then maybe you get in it or you don't
Yeah.
because you can't act, we're actually teaching each student how to emote, how to act, how to do the right things. And so other than the main characters in Unnatural and in Homeless for the Holidays, what you're seeing is a lot of students.
Okay.
And those were done like one after the other.
Sure.
The next few coming out are going to be different times in the last 3 years. And you'll see a little bit of different people. But I always work with Al Snow and John Wells because to teach, you got to have so much of a level
Sure.
education. And I don't want to be teaching anybody from somebody who just pins like they know it. The Smoky one coming up in January is by Scream actress Lynn Lowry.
Oh yeah.
In The Crazies, and she's actually teaching. She'll teach over 12 hours of acting while we're doing that. So I hope I hope other people pick up on it, because I think by educating the people that are on your set, you create your own little group of wonderful people.
And you've got a great group here. I mean, yeah, I saw that the commonality, at John Wells, you got Al Snow, both Unnatural and here, and a mixture of veteran indie performers along with the younger crowd. Like in Homeless for the Holidays, you have Brashay Crumb, who I really liked as Samantha. Actually, I liked the young cast as well. They seem to hold their own with the veterans in this. Does that help you with the learning process? You also have the veterans kind of allowing the younger, not so experienced performers kind of breathe and explore as well.
Yeah, well, interestingly, when you have younger students, and this is going to sound horrible in one way, but it is still the truth. The worst thing you can do is kind of get educated by people that don't know what they're doing.
Sure.
Because then you have to uneducate them and what they're doing wrong to re-educate them.
Right.
So most of our younger people picked up on what our instructors were saying so quickly, right? And so because they didn't have a whole lot of acting experience, we just basically taught them to look natural.
Sure.
And there's a lot of talent. I mean, a lot of talent in young people. And what happens is we got to get you before life beats the living tar out of you.
Sure.
Because acting at the end of the day, acting is pretending, right? And so when life beats the hell out of you, pretending goes away. You're like, oh, the struggle is real. It's life is hard if you're stupid, and if you're really stupid, it's even harder, right? So when you catch them when they're 17, 18, and 19, you go, okay, now pretend like you're rich. And they're like, whoa, and okay, now bring that down by half. Bring that down by half. Bring that down by half. And it's mainly The difference between theater and movies is just the level of intensity.
Mm.
Uh, Movies is about almost like being casual while you're delivering. We always want to oversell. We always want to overproduce. So I keep telling the young ones, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. And one of the first things I always teach people is know your cinema lenses. And if you don't know your lenses, at least know this. Ask the director, are you seeing my whole body? Are you seeing my knees up? Are you seeing my chest up? Are you seeing my face up? Because once you have all four of those in your head, like your full body, you can do full theater. You can wave your arms and whatever. And then you cut it in half when it's knees, and you cut it in half when it's chest, and you cut it in half when it's face. So once I teach everyone, hey, I'm doing a close-up, I'm shooting this much, they already instinctively know because of the classes to really cut that down. I mean, so you're looking at 100%, then it goes to 50, then it goes to 25, then it goes to 12.5. So understanding, oh, I have to cut my acting down 90% because I'm doing a close-up is such an advantage to actors. And once again, easier to tell that to somebody who's young because they don't have a point of reference.
They're still a little more impressionable, at least. You catch them. They're a little more able to listen a little more than, say, an older actor or veteran, or those who've been in the camera a little bit and think they may know more.
The most interesting one is when, like, people who always think they're good are going to be like car salesmen and people like that. And as soon as you stick a camera up in their face, they're like, oh.
That's one thing I noticed, because I used to work for Channel a news station in Wausau here, because I'm in the middle of Wisconsin. But I used to work, senior year, I worked there, and when I used to actually go out in the field and shoot with a anchor, with a reporter, it was amazing how many people either freeze up or get nervous just with a camera pointing. For me, it wasn't a big deal, but it just was amazing how people would just change. You talk to them, and then suddenly, oh, can we shoot? Ask a couple questions. They'd be sure. Then you get the camera up, and then all of a sudden they're just like stiff, and that's just a person on the street. And then I'm thinking of actors trying to emote or perform. Yeah, it's got to be interesting. It's different with the camera in front of them.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the first things, as an actor you learn, just like you're a magician, you always have like a quarter trick or something.
Sure.
But for actors, you always have a monologue. And so I would always first start saying, hey, let me see your monologue. And they would do it. And then when they would get cocky and arrogant, it's kind of like I'm a first degree black belt. Well, okay, this is a third degree. Now he whips your ass, right? So this is the same way. I would say, okay, you did your monologue. Great. Now let's do it again. And then I would walk up and put my face 6 inches away, and it would freak them out. And they're like, only a couple of times did somebody just do it. And I go, look, I'm a camera. Why do people freeze up? It's because now I'm here in your face, and there's 16 people on the other side wanting you to perform, and you have to pretend like they're not there, right? So that's a lot of stress. And then when you realize, on a little indie film, it's not that much. I might spend $3,500 a day, sometimes $5,000 a day to just have everybody there. But when you realize that every hour you're in front of the camera and you're messing up,
it costs money. Yeah.
Costing money, right? So I remember one of my friends talking about being on a TV show, like a real actual TV show, 10 million an episode. And he was calculating every hour was $50,000.
Wow.
And that's why actors should think about that. Don't know that it's $50,000 an hour. Just go in there like you own the world, and
there you go.
Your lines, right? So
well, everybody in Homeless for the holidays. I mean, I was watching it going, okay, and it wasn't a slight, but I'm watching it going, okay, I can kind of see where this is already going to go, because a holiday film, it's comfort food though. Holiday films, I think in general, most of them follow a formula, But I know people who love watching them, just like romantic comedies, because the familiarity of it, I think, helps give you a little comfort and go, okay, I know where this is gonna go. And in this one, what surprised me was seeing the people you had in the roles they were, like John Wells, because I went from watching Unnatural, where you have John Wells playing a very suave vampire villain, and you've got, Al Snow playing a reluctant hero, to now here where John Wells is playing a stuck-up butler with an accent, and Al just looks like he's having fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember Al saying, I'm going to play it like I'm 12 years old. I go, okay, you nailed it. You know? And luckily Pippa was who played the housemaid, really was from Britain. And so
sure.
They could actually, he played off of her very well. I guess he, of course you'd go, hey, how would you say this? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to say,
So she didn't mind the accent then.
No, she actually said it was very good. It wasn't from her region, apparently.
Sure.
In the UK, they got 700 different.
Yeah.
But it was once again formulaic. But I look at it and I go, hey, there's a whole series of Hallmark movies, and they're literally just replacing human beings and telling the same story over again. But hopefully there was a couple little things in there that made quite, the same as the other.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying it as a slight. I was like, I felt it like it was I've seen some indie films that try to be holiday films, and especially comedies, and comedy is hard to pull off. People don't realize, especially I imagine, and I've had this conversation with some other folks as well, to where in comedy, in front of the stage, you get an immediate reaction, whereas you're shooting it in front of a camera, the crew can't laugh because it's going to screw up with the room sound. So then you're just like, I don't know if this is hitting or not.
Yeah, well, with comedy, directing comedy, in my point of view, it's best that the actors don't pretend that they're in on the joke. Like, what was important to me when we were shooting this was that none of them, I said, you are homeless people,
right?
Pretending you are rich. Their perception of how they dressed and what they brought was from a homeless person's point of view, right? Like, this is what I think rich people would act like,
right?
And so I think they all did a good job of doing that. No one went that far off script. I think Miss Kitty really enjoyed her little things, and she definitely was funny. But that was only Loretta's second movie that she was in. So,
sure.
And you can see she's only in Unnatural for a short time, but I think the second thing that I do is I write scripts and then I go back and rewrite them based on who I'm casting.
Oh, sure.
Because I know their strengths and weaknesses, right?
Right.
And so, but comedy is best. There's comedy like Saturday Night Live. When you watch Saturday Night Live, those people are in on the joke,
right? And
they over exaggerate their characters and they laugh along with the audience. And like you said, there's nobody sitting here going, is it funny? And there, of course, are many takes where, we had to do a second take or a third take because somebody broke up laughing. But Al Snow, I don't know if you know his background, but he played somebody who was mentally ill in the WWE.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, Head.
And so he was, his riffs, I probably cut out 20 minutes of his riffs. and the other thing was he liked poking people in the butthole. So there, one of those made it into the actual movie. But there's one scene where Jack is underneath the table and you see Jack, it's like, you don't see it, but he just got spooned in the butthole by Al Snow. And he actually screams, and I had to take the scream out.
Sure.
Because, of course, there's a running joke with that character
Right.
throughout the movie. So, but like I said, hopefully there's a couple things. My fiance watched it, and I remember after it's over, she goes, "Why did you have to do that to that character?" And I'm letting it in. I go, because the movies that inspired me, like this movie is probably most inspired by Bill Murray's Scrooged.
Oh yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I felt that quite a bit. Yeah.
So that was probably my basis outline when I wrote it.
Sure.
I was also a big fan of the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers.
Oh yeah. Sure.
So I went back and watched a lot of that to get back into my mind of, how people just say silly stuff. So
Yeah, you got your I can see that now, especially you mentioning the Marx Brothers. Thinking back through Homeless of the Holidays, a lot of the beats and scenes felt a bit inspired by, especially when you have a silent character like Jack Elfman. I love
yeah.
you get the scene where he's sitting there with Edmund and the maid, and they're plotting, and he's just sitting there observing, and it was a little bit like Marx Brothers skit to where
Yeah. Well, the actor that played Jack actually was in the running to replace Jim Varney in the
Ernest movies.
Ernest movies.
Really?
Oh, he does a spot on Ernest. I like if you ever look him up, Billy Crank is his name. If you look up Billy, they have hired him to play Ernest in a couple things, and his emotions and the way he can act without saying a word was what made that character so wonderful. And
yeah, it was definitely a Harpo moment with him in that kitchen
when they play charades.
Yeah.
I think to me the most interesting thing though is I played it for a lot of kids, and the most heartwarming thing for me was when I asked one young lady what she thought of it. She was about 11. She goes, "Well, I've watched it 4 times." And I said, "Oh, I just gave it to you yesterday." She's like, "I love it." So when there's repeatability in it.
Sure.
And of course, I know this is going to sound weird, but it's also a little bit inspired by the new Barbie movie.
Okay,
So,
sure.
That's why it has a dance off in it and things.
Yeah, I loved the dance off and the original music as well. And now, I was surprised as well that you're also a musician, among many of the other things that you do. Did you have a hand in the music?
Yeah, I'm a lyricist, and there's a bunch of new AIs that have come out that makes people see. This is going to piss people off. But I write almost all of my music using AI now. And people are going to think that it's easy. It is absolutely not easy to, even with the help of AI, to write songs.
Sure.
I always make sure all my lyrics are mine so that they're copyrightable. But a lot of the music is created I use a company called Suno.
Okay.
Suno.com. I started because I have a announcement. The wrestling movie, which will come out this summer, is a musical.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
And I wrote 14 songs for that film, and so I wasn't able to do it until Suno came along. But since then, movie making is my job, and my hobby now is making songs. I have somewhere, but in the last 6 months, I've wrote about 120 songs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
When you're a creative person and you've not been able to do it,
it's like the floodgate. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, and also songwriting, and maybe I'm wrong, to me is like writing a poem, right? So some people
it can be, yeah.
It's a very structured poem. And so I have found that it helps me with a lot of trauma.
Oh
And
yeah.
if anybody out there is having a rough time in life, grab yourself a pencil and paper and write some of your, you know, songs are kind of like an emotion.
Hmm.
So you can tell a story, country style story, or you can just get this moment of emotion. And if you're having problems in life, if you're upset Trump has won, hey, write some songs, get that emotion out.
Write some songs, create some short videos, do
Yeah,
something creative.
and what I'm trying to teach as time goes on
Mhm.
is filmmaking isn't just for Hollywood. Like
Yeah.
the iPhone 15s and 16s have 1-inch sensor in them. And if you know lighting and you can write and you can do whatever, you can go and shoot a movie that you can play in the theater.
Mhm.
Now, of course, it might take you a lot of time to learn all of the different aspects, but my goal in 3 years is to start a technical school to teach kids how to do filmmaking.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And there are nice little, probably right now, the barrier of entry to making a film has gone down from hundreds of thousands of dollars for equipment down to about $1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have this nice little frame from Beast Cage
Mhm.
that I can put my iPhone in, and it will actually hold. Here, let me get this all put together. It actually has a place here that you can put cinematic lenses on it.
Oh, nice.
And this is actually about $100.
Sure.
And the lenses can go right on here. You can rig it out and look just like a regular one. The other one is Hollyland lavaliers, which will hook right into your phone, and they have about a one football field length of getting good sound.
Sure.
And sound used to be important,
Mhm.
but now they have AI that it can almost take any sound and
Clean
get
it
it.
up. Yeah.
So the filmmakers of the future will be working hand in hand with AI.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think it's inevitable. In that respect, I can see AI as far as helping cleaning up footage, helping cleaning up audio, helping tweak those things that you've created, but you just weren't quite able to get it with the right equipment. That is where AI is being beneficial for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's a company out there named Strata that
mhm.
is doing something amazing. Like one of the last things that AI is going to be able to do is do editing for a film. You can edit live shows like what we're doing
Sure.
reasonably, but to be able to do pacing on a live show. But this company named Strata, and you can look them up. They're out of California, and they show you how to film with an iPhone, by the way. You can find them on YouTube. And they have an AI that will tag every second of your video by putting who it is. Here's Al Snow.
Sure.
Here's this. Here's where they're throwing a football. And then while you're editing, you can just type in, I know Al Snow throws a football. Show me all of that. And it just shows you all the footage.
Oh, helps you
So
go
it
through the
just
footage
goes
for
and-
sure. Wow.
So it'll put about 70 tags on every frame
Sure.
of your film. So while you're in the editing process, like you can edit a movie pretty quickly, but the main thing is reaction shots, right? So now
Right.
it's like, oh, I need a reaction shot of, Loretta looking to the left. There it is, and it shows it to you. So AIs are going to be more like assistants and not they're not
Replacements.
they're not replacements. They're for entrepreneurs like me and you that can't afford 25 people, but can afford a few AIs.
Sure.
And that's where they're at. I mean, I've tried to write an AI, tried to write a script with AI,
Mhm.
and here's what I've learned. It makes me so mad, I just write the script. It's like, no, that's exactly not what I wanted, you asshole.
So good to know, like Homeless and Unnatural and all those are written by you and not by AI. So that's
Well,
good.
they're written by me, not by AI, because out of me being angry.
Mhm.
It's like, you guys, here's my belief in this is that AI is going to get everyone from a 1 to a 10. AI is going to get everyone to a 5.
Sure.
Now the problem you have is how do you teach someone to get higher than a 5
Right.
when they don't have the base knowledge to get higher than that?
Right.
So it's going to make the master or the sensei or the people that know what they're doing even more important.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
Because
no, I mean that's been the story for a long time with indie films, especially ever since the Handycam came out. Is that sure you could go out in the back and just shoot with your Handycam with your friends, and that's great. You're learning how to work the equipment. Doesn't mean necessarily that what you're making is going to be watchable by anybody but you until you
Correct.
learn.
Yeah, and you have to learn every department. I always tell people a movie is actually 7 films, and they think it's one, but
Sure.
the 7th one is all of them combined.
Right.
But when you write a story, that's when that's the first person that envisions what's going on. Then you get a director or a producer comes in and then imagines what they see in their head based on that story. And then you have a cinematographer come in. Well, he's telling a different story, how he's moving the camera, moving in and out. All right. So then you have the actors involved. They're changing, they're moving, it's a cooperative piece of artwork. Then you get to the editor. The editor has to, I mean, I've even noticed because I edit some of my movies, I like to start moving things around. It's like,
Right.
oh, the script was like this, but I think this would go here before this. Right. So now the editor's got it. Then you hand it over to the sound guy or the Foley who's making people don't understand the richness of footsteps and drawing out weapons. And that's a whole art that can make your movie or break your movie. And that person's usually also making the sound well. And I hope when you watch them, at least you're like, oh yeah, I can hear everything that they're saying.
Oh yeah, no, the movies I've watched of yours definitely have been mixed very well, both Unnatural and Homeless for the holidays, because I've seen some indie films, and I've always told people that I'm like, if just from reviewing them, because I've focused on indie films for about 13 years now of the many years I've been on YouTube, and one thing I've always talked to people about is I'm like, one thing that will be noticeable before your visuals is your audio. I've seen films that looked great, but the audio was so distracting that you couldn't. Whereas I've heard others where audio was mixed wonderfully and the visuals weren't as good, but it didn't matter because the audio influenced me more. It's really.
Once again, a poor sounding movie with great visuals will not succeed, but a poor movie with good audio can. And then finishing up my statement is then the last person comes in as the music. All of those go together and make the 7th movie, which is the final one that you see. And so when you take all of those and realize everyone's got to be a master at that craft. Now, when you're trying to teach kids, once you break it down, you go, okay, first master the writing, then master the visionary, then learn how to act so you can talk to your actors, then learn, what the DP is doing and how he's lighting and how he's moving the camera, and then actually one of the places I learned most about making a movie was editing a movie. It's like, oh, I messed up here. I needed to do this. I needed to do that. And what I've done is I started breaking everything down into a system so that I can teach kids, and then once you go and learn it, then make your own style. Right. So yeah. And I will tell you, Unnatural, whew, I mean, I edited it. I did most of the sound design on it. And I hope I never work that hard on a movie again.
Well, it turned out well, but also you're taking on a period piece with Unnatural because, where Homeless is in the modern time, that's easy. You don't have to worry too much. But in Unnatural, you've got to worry about the costuming, the location, which I was wondering, where did you shoot Unnatural? Because I really thought it felt like a Western town. for the most part. I thought it really felt
It's
very authentic.
it's actually called Possum Trot,
Oh, it
and
is.
and it's in Winfield, Tennessee. It's on the
Mm.
border of Kentucky and Tennessee. Saw it because they run conventions there, and some of my LARPer friends were down there doing a
Ah,
fantasy deal, and I
sure.
go, "Oh, that's a Western town down there." And it happened to end up to have 30 beds in it.
Oh,
So we
wow.
ended up, everybody stayed on set.
Well,
So,
that's budget savings there too.
yeah.
Everybody gets.
So, and that's how I do most of all of mine. I find a unique place to go film, make sure it has 20 to 30 beds, and then we all stay there. And we have a different view. Like every one of us is like family, like
Sure.
help each other and promote and do everything
Right.
that we need to together. And it's growing. And the new Smoky has almost 80% new people in it. So
Wow. Wow. Well,
yeah.
that explains the mansion in Homeless for the Holidays, because we go from being under the bridge to a wonderful mansion, which had a lot of rooms.
Airbnb 400 a day. So
It was a gorgeous location. I really liked that, especially the kitchen. For sure
it
was
it has been bought by my dentist. So
really.
yeah, she was like, and I just found out last week because she's a new dentist. She's like, "Oh
Sure.
yeah, I live in that house now." I go, "Hey, would you like to come to the premiere?"
Sure.
Yeah, that's the premiere.
You can
But
see we didn't damage it.
I shot another film there called
Uh,
12 to Dawn, which we'll be releasing
mm.
in about 4 months.
Now,
Let's go
now,
ahead.
what would you say is the what was your shoot time for Unnatural and especially Homeless for Holidays?
Homeless was quick. We
Hmm.
did that in 8 days.
Oh, wow.
And
Nice. Yeah,
Unnatural was 13 days.
sure. But
So
that's a short time. I've learned quite a bit. The 13 days,
you
even
have,
is.
yeah, you have to be. When I worked for TSR, my main job there was running their conventions. I ran Gen Con.
Mhm.
And so I became a logistics expert young. And if you think about a movie, it's the same thing as running a convention, only instead of everyone coming and playing Dungeons and Dragons, everyone comes and shows up and acts,
Right.
right? So it's
Right.
the same thing. Organized location, uh, you know, and that to me was the easy part. The hard part was learning the acting part, which I went and spent 2 years in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
I did background acting. My first actual show was The Vampire Diaries. My second show was Walking Dead. I was there when Negan showed up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was
Sure.
there when they killed Glenn. I played a character named the Pickaxe Savior. I have a pickaxe on my shoulder.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And so the whole reason I did background was I had movie equipment. I was writing 2-minute screens, finding actors to do demos together. And in 18 months, I shot over 100 demos.
Oh, wow.
And so
Mhm.
I have 100 and some shorts that I wrote. And then I started going, well, a movie is just 44 of these put together.
Sure.
And so that's what I had to learn to do. And what I hope when you watch our films is the realization of my background in Dungeons and Dragons
Sure.
and world building was I wanted to create a world where you go, what's going on here?
Mhm.
What's this about? Like Unnatural has a whole lot of mythology that you haven't seen yet.
Right.
And if you tell all of the mythology, then why would anybody want to watch a sequel or why, you know? And the other thing is I don't answer, it's not my job to answer every question from a
No.
movie.
Yeah.
And I think young writers try to do that.
Yeah, you see that a little bit more. It's like it's an interesting balance because for me as a watcher, I don't necessarily need everything spelt out, but at the same time, I've seen some big Hollywood films completely ignore the rules or not. You could tell they really don't have any structure to the world that they're playing in at all. They're just really winging it, and you can feel that, and I think that takes you out a little bit. But that at the same time, I don't need everything explained either. But having a little structure helps. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, I mean, I think one of the reasons why John Wick is so popular
mhm.
was when we first saw that. It was like, oh, what are these coins? What's this assassin hotel? You know, what are the, I mean, if they would have just done it in a normal everyday setting, it wouldn't have been fascinating.
Right, right,
So, so every, I mean, it's a little bit harder to do in Homeless for the holidays because, you know, it's this world,
right. Yeah.
you know, so it doesn't always work. But when you're doing independent movies, most of the times you're doing science fiction, uh, horror,
Or yeah.
or fantasy.
Mm.
Those are the three that don't require a big star. If you do a romantic comedy, and why a lot of independent romantic comedies don't work is you kind of at least need a B movie star to be in
Yeah.
it, you know. So and well, that's my take. And once again, I could be wrong. And you know, my question for you is, being somebody who does a lot of film reviews, you're a professional watcher, which to me is kind of strange. But
I also dabble in some making as well, but yeah, mostly
sure,
watching.
sure, but you see it differently than other people. I
Mhm.
mean,
Sure.
I've always wanted to ask, you know, when you're decide to do this, what are like top 3 or 4 main things, especially in independent low budget movies, that you always look for? I mean, are you more willing to turn a blind eye, knowing budget constraints and day
Mm.
constraints? Would you, I mean, do you grade independent movies a lot differently than you would, say, a Star Wars TV show?
Oh, absolutely. It's actually when I first started doing this and first looking at indie films, I was giving them a rating like I gave wide release films. But after a while, I stopped actually giving on my scale. Instead of stars, it's stubs. It comes all the way back from high school when I wrote. I used ticket stubs, 5 of them, being the ultimate. But
For
I
sure.
stopped rating them because I realized people would use a, say, 3-star indie film compared to a 3-star Hollywood, big budget film. And then they would come to me and go, that wasn't a 3-star, because they weren't used to the independent aesthetic. So I stopped kind of doing a rating system like that for most independent films. And for me, I rate things a little bit different than some of my fellow critics, but if I'm entertained, you've won half the battle right there. Regardless of the aesthetic, if I'm entertained, is one of the big things. And then the other thing is performances. If I got into the characters, which I did for both your films, if I really enjoy the characters and I'm entertained, that's 3/4 of the battle right there almost. And then the other things, the technical aspects, which usually if those two really appeal to me, then it doesn't bother me as much. Though I will mention, I'll mention stuff that I noticed that I thought could have used improvement, but it doesn't take away from my actual enjoyment of the movie. And I
Sure.
also give warning to other folks who may not watch a lot of indie films, saying, hey, this does have a micro budget aesthetic. So, some of the shots or some of the audio may not be great, but you're going to laugh out loud at, whatever the character is, or you're going to enjoy the story.
Yeah.
And with your films, they have a high production value and entertaining characters. So for me, like you said, I had fun with both of them. Al Snow was hilarious, and then I was thinking back to his wrestling days, because that's when I knew him, was back in the ring when I watched wrestling, and to see him become an actor has been a lot of fun, seeing the roles he takes as well. So that appealed to me. And John Wells, I've noticed in a number of films now I've seen of him in, and always talented. And yeah, I think people are, for indie films, focus a little too much, or are distracted too much by the maybe smaller budget aesthetic of some films, and missing some fun stories or some fun performances by talented folks. And and that's where I kind of try to focus my attention to is when I'm watching it, I go, was I entertained? If I'm entertained, I'm not going to notice some of the maybe lower audio or some of the technical mistakes. Or if I do, I don't care because I'm into the movie. And that for me is the element is was I pulled in and entertained throughout?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I've been critical about, once again, harking back to my gaming days,
Sure.
um, having structure, like one of the first things I did was break down a script structure.
Mhm.
And I also was an art major in college, and I'll never forget one of my professors saying, "Learn all the rules, then you can break them." And
Yeah.
and both of my movies are actually very formulaic.
Mm.
And I teach people how to write off of a real simple system, which is this. Most movies are 88 minutes long.
Yeah.
No scene is usually longer than 2 minutes.
Mhm.
So what you can do is get 44 index cards, right?
Mhm.
Then you're going to have a first, a second, and a third act. If you take those index cards and you divide them by 7 and you put them out on a table in 7 rows, the first row is your first act and the last row is your third act. Then you'll have 5 endings to a line, and every one of those endings has to be a plot twist, has to be something happen. If it's an action movie, we're having an action fight. If it's a comedy, we're like, simply when you break down Homeless, it's a pie fight, a dance off,
The pie.
and then something tragic happening,
Right.
and then everybody wants to have the conclusion, right? So when you look at Unnatural, I did the same thing for it, except for I had one row that I didn't have. I wrote the story out completely, and I have this whole row. And I said, you know what? I'm going to write a side story about 3 brothers that come into town and show what the town is from their perspective.
Sure.
And it juxtaposes the other character because he acts nothing like them.
Right.
So, so sometimes happy accidents happen. The one rule I did break in Unnatural was you don't get to meet one of the characters until 44 minutes into it.
Oh,
Typically you meet all of the characters in Act 1.
sure.
They were mentioned in Act 1, but so I took liberty of breaking a rule.
But at the same time, I think that added to the character that you don't meet right away. I really liked the mystery because it really helped build that character up in Unnatural. And we're not going to say who. You'll have to watch the movie to find out. But yeah. But for that character, I really liked that because it kept some mystery going on. I'm like, huh. And then I started thinking, well, are they on a limited budget? Will we actually ever meet this character? Or is it going to be is it going to be like an off-screen sound or something, but we never actually, because I've seen some horror movies like that. I'm sure we've all seen horror movies like that where they tease like some big baddie and you get to like the baddie's lair and they were supposed to get resurrected or whatever, and all we see is the opening of the casket or whatever, and maybe a hand. But then it closes because they defeated it before. And so you never actually get to see the big, huge...
The anticlimactic finish, which is... I think my favorite one was Ralph Bakshi's Wizards. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it. Oh,
that
yeah.
was such the anticlimactic ending. I'm like, there you go. And so a lot of low budget people do that. What I have to do, like for our finale scene in Unnatural, was I had to, months before, learn how to do some special effects I wanted to do.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
And the special effects required some green screen. But the main thing that I had to learn was I had to write down every angle of every shot. So the tripod, the angle of where we shot, and the degree from the floor. And then when I came back and did it in a green screen room, I had to write down the measurements for that shot so that the angles would work, right?
Sure.
And you wouldn't think, you can't just make a movie and go, we'll wing it. I actually had to know how, to make practical blood effects. Like almost all the blood in Unnatural is made by getting a pump up bug sprayer.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
But instead of putting it inside, you just use that as an air, and you put a long tube on the end of it. So when you press it, it sprays out. And the only thing I'm frustrated about Unnatural's review, there was only one, and the guy goes, I didn't like the CGI blood. And I'm like, of all the things you could say, that was the one thing that we did not CGI. But I think when they see so much blood come out, that they go, oh, that's got to be CGI. And funny for that was there's a scene in there where Al gets it right in the face. And we've shot the first 10 days, and we only had that one scene that we could do. And it hit Al literally right between the eyes. I started laughing so hard that we had to come back another 3 days and shoot. And I had to film that scene again. And I remember, okay, I'm going to put that little pipe right here next to you, John. And then I turned it to where I thought it would hit him about right here. Well, lo and behold, it hit him right between the eyes again. But this time,
you got good aim.
I was not watching the screen, so I didn't laugh. Anyway, there's a little story from it.
Oh, that's hilarious, though, that you were able to use practical effects as much as you could on that one.
Yeah, and and I keep learning more practical effects.
And actually, that was me that mentioned the CGI. So I thought it looked like
that was
CGI
you?
blood. That was me.
Take that!
There you go.
A-hole. I hope you feel better about it.
By all means, bring it on. Bring it on.
No, I mean, you got to admit you're wrong sometimes.
I will fully admit I was wrong. It parts of it did look a little bit like it was CGI enhanced, but
you know why it probably looked that way is because in the final version we shot everything in slow motion.
Oh, okay.
So we were actually using a camera and we shot it in 120 frames a second.
Ah, okay, I got you. So you could catch more of it.
Yeah, and then when I'm in editing, guess what? I have to speed things up.
You got to speed it up, yeah.
Which would make it maybe look like that, but I promise you there was absolutely zero CGI. So,
well, I stand corrected.
I'm sad for saying that.
I stand corrected. See, look at it. It's not often that you get a chance to face your critics. So there you.
Well, but the other thing is I've read a bunch of stuff and I go, oh yeah, they're right. Because of course when you say the bad things, you say the good things. You say, look, they could have spent more time doing this. They could have spent more time doing that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. We could have.
I've gotten that too with reviews and. It's one of those things for me, especially because I've been involved in a number of indie projects too over the years. I've been very fortunate that I have some friends who say, "Hey, you want to work on a film project?" I'm like, well, "Yeah, sure," and I understand the challenges. So, but you're also struggle with that versus mentioning it or not, and I like to try to provide a balance to where I'm like, I did notice this, but I try to focus more on the positives because it's.
I think one of the things this would just be a new way of reviewing. Reviewers should have how many days was it shot? What was your budget? Because how you would for instance, I was the rock stand-in on Fast 8. Not very many days, but I was one of them. And they shot for 6 months, spent $200 million, and captured 90 seconds a day. Okay. well, your film better be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing this, this is what it should be.
Right.
Versus $50,000 for Unnatural over 13 days.
See, and that's amazing. That's amazing for what you'd made. That is amazing. What the product you made is very well done.
And once again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't still compare it to other stories.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, hey, take into consideration that, this is all we had to work off.
Oh yeah, and I've had that too, where I've done some reviews to where I've mentioned a lot of positives, but I also mentioned some of the things that I noticed, because some filmmakers really appreciate that. They're like, I didn't quite like what you said there, but it was good to be honest, because they look back and they go, yeah, you're probably right. And there was one that I mentioned to where I said, I enjoyed the film, I enjoyed these scenes, I just wish they had a tripod, because they were shooting, I was honest. I try to be honest in my reviews, and they messaged me and they said, you're absolutely right. But then they explained, yeah, the agreement we had with the location, it was supposed to be 3 nights. It was down to 1 night. We're supposed to have a tripod, but we couldn't get the tripod for that night because they changed nights on us. You're like, and so they gave me like a little explanation of it. And I was like, I appreciated that. I understand that. I'm like, that makes sense then.
And the biggest problem that you have when you're doing a small movie like this is the Herculean task of getting everyone together for a short period of time.
Sure.
And then someone goes, well, we don't have a tripod. And you're like, it's now beyond my control. Our only 2 things we can do now is not shoot it at all, or shoot it and do our best and guess the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they did. And you have to understand, as a movie reviewer, as a movie producer, as somebody making them, you're going to get critique. Here's the thing. You watched it. Even if it was bad, you watched it. Even if whatever. I mean, the first thing everyone should know, anybody who ever makes a feature film, pat them on the back. Congratulations. So many people who start have never finished. I think it's only like less than 1.5% of people who start movies finish a movie. So the first thing is, it's a Herculean task, even if it's horrible.
Right. Oh yeah. No, any film, I fully respect anybody who is able to get a project done. I mean, I know some films that took 6 years, 8 years for them to complete, from when they first start shooting the footage till when it's actually released out into the wild.
Kids have grown up since the time.
Yeah, suddenly the 1 year the kid is like 5'2", and then we got to do some pickups the next year. Too late, the kid had a growth spurt. Now they're 6 foot.
Shoot them far away.
Shoot them. Okay, stand on this box, and we'll put you here. We'll kind of do a Peter Jackson.
Yeah, Peter Jackson stuff, and then put like a mask on them. I was saying, okay, number one, you're rewarded. I guess in the United States, every year, 10,000 independent movies are made. If that's only 1.5%, that means you got nearly 100,000 movies going on.
Right.
They'll never see the light of day. Now you got the 10,000 that made it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now here's what everyone doesn't realize. 80% of them are first timers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you make a movie and expect that it's going to be good the first time. Out of the 10,000, only 200 to 350 people get picked up by a distributor. So let's just assume on the average, they spend $10,000 a movie. So, that's $10 million of movies. Yeah. Only 200 to 250 are going to get distribution. So now if somebody's did a movie and got distribution, that's the second kudo. And then I think what I've learned from you today is, was it watchable? You know, I rarely do I see a movie that gets picked up by distribution that isn't somewhat watchable.
Sure.
But then the next thing was, am I entertained or did I learn something? So that may be the fourth one that I would if I was reviewing. But having been in the gaming industry most of my life, what I have learned, if something's not good, I just don't say anything about it anymore.
See, and I've done that a couple of times where I've had a couple of films, not many. Most of them I've always found positive things to say, but there's been a few films that I didn't review because I'm just like, you know, I just
Right. I really wanted, I was rooting for you.
I was rooting for you, but I can't I don't want to review it and put it out there because I try to find the positives in my reviews for films. There's very few of them to where it'll be a heavy negative film. You know, there's a few of them where I'm laughing with friends on like a few of the films from Asylum Pictures and that. But here's the thing, even though we may be picking them apart and kind of jeering them a little bit, at the same time we had fun watching. You know, you're having fun.
And guess what? If 200 people go watch the movie because of that, you help that guy out, get 200 more sales, right? So that's what it all boils down to. The reason I quit giving bad reviews and all of that is because somebody's learning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to poo-poo somebody learning on their craft.
Right.
And well, anyway, so getting back to it, we were talking about only 200 to 300 movies getting picked up.
Sure.
Well, I went to the AFM last year, bought a room there, spent almost $20,000 because I'm teaching education equity. And what we have realized also, out of those 300, 1 in 40 movies will catch lightning in a bottle. Like I think last year it was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
And this year it's of course Terrifier 3.
Right.
Which is the highest grossing movie that doesn't have a rating.
Yeah.
So but once a year, one of these 10,000 are going to break.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And now I produce 4 films a year.
Mm-hmm.
So my statistical odds are within 10 years, maybe I'll have one of those. But to be perfectly honest, that's not my goal. My goal is now to teach kids, and hopefully one of them will get that, right? And all I can do is hope that I can teach them a basic system of creating movies that give them the best odds of
possibly getting work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really hard is teaching 18 and 19-year-olds how to write, because once again, I don't want to say not everybody, but most of them don't really have anything to say. That's why horror movies are so popular. You don't have to say a damn thing. Come up with a creature, interesting ways to kill somebody. Who gives a shit? Now we have a horror movie. And that's why so many people cut their teeth on that.
Right.
But Unnatural was a very personal story to me. Dan Remington was my father. So anytime I had to react is just, well, this is what my dad would do. and you know, and the 2 kids were my kids, right? So you're either writing a formulaic movie based off of tropes and things with interesting plot twists, or you have a story to tell. And of course, you know, some people have said about Unnatural, it's a little slow pacing. Yeah, you know,
it's a Western though. I mean, I'm sitting here going, it's a Western though, and you need those character moments. It's a different type of film. You're looking at getting those character moments, and that may give it a slower pace. But it's you've got stuff happening with your characters. You know, you've got Remington and the lady working the store, that relationship. You've got like you said, the brothers. So I wouldn't necessarily agree that it's slow. I think you know, that's tossed around a lot.
I think what it is to me is it's a Western with horror elements,
right?
Not a horror movie has Western elements because you have to judge it from a genre.
Right.
And I think the pacing of it is far faster than most Westerns you would watch. You have Unforgiven, which is one of the best Westerns ever, is a lot slower of a pacing because it's a lot of character buildup for you to want to care. I think it was one of the first movies that I ever saw where everyone was right if you looked from their point of view.
Yes.
Those are my favorite kind of movies. And when I write, what I think makes a good villain is they have to believe that they're the hero of the story. John Wells, not trying not to spoil my own movie, his character believes he's the hero. And everybody, my best writing advice to anyone is always write every character wanting to be the hero.
Sure.
And even
have that with Homeless for the Holidays.
yeah. I mean, now I do have more cutout characters for that,
right.
But I did make sure when you're teaching, like when I teach, there's the second thing in my head that goes, okay, did I give every character a beginning, a middle, and an end? Right. So my favorite storyline is the chef.
Oh, I love the chef story. Yeah.
And that has a definite beginning, middle, and end. When you're I don't think a normal writer thinks about all their characters having a beginning, and middle, and end. And they definitely don't have 27 people in a movie.
I was going to say, you had a large, when I was watching Homeless for the Holidays, I'm like, this is a large cast. And yet you do manage to give everybody their moment, at least one or two moments, some more than others, but everybody at least gets down to Miss Kitty, who I thought Miss Kitty, that was a great character. Even your Uber drivers that you have in Homeless, they get their moment as well, to enough to where you're making them more than just an extra. They felt like a person, not just a body in a movie.
And once again, that's a happy accident for me because when I'm trying to teach the school, it doesn't do me any good to make people not have a good scene. So it ups my ante to go, okay, I have to write a better scene. You're going to be surprised about this, but some people really like my older Uber driver, one of the best scenes. I wrote that 24 hours before we shot it.
Oh, nice.
Because he was supposed to be Mr. Grumpy Pants. I gave him the wrong day.
Oh.
He goes, oh, I'm coming up tomorrow. I missed this. And I'm like, whoa, shit. So I just wrote that scene out of, they have to have an entrance anyway. And we already shot the drone of all of them coming into the house. I said, well, let's show them getting dropped off by an Uber. And so a lot of times it's just a lot of happy accidents when you're filming. One of the things, I teach kids when they're shooting a movie, everyone always is crazy about a shot list, right? Shot list, gotta have this, gotta have this, gotta have this. That's great if you have a couple $100,000, $400,000. But to quickly make one of these movies, you have to do a wide shot, 2 medium shots, 2 close-ups, and a picture of the cat. and of course, the picture of the cat is always some transitional thing,
right?
Wind blowing, flickering, this or that. Then you go back and go, okay, now I have a special shot,
right?
Like for instance, my DP when I did Unnatural. I always, as the director said, there's going to be this shot with these brass knuckles coming up. So he didn't know that. He also didn't know about the cross.
Oh, yes.
Fire that I did, which by the way, I cut that out with an auger myself and almost died because there were underground electrical wires. But that's beside the point. I did catch myself on fire. If you ever get Al Snow as an interview, you can talk about Whitman running around half on fire. But I was damned and determined. I'd say, someone goes, let us help you. You're like, nope, if anyone's going to burn themselves up, it's only going to be me. So every movie
Right.
should have about 5 to 6 special shots on top of a medium. Sorry, a wide, 2 medium. And if you just follow that process and don't break the line of 180, you can fairly well do a good movie. And I did have, I study DPs, and one of my more seasoned DP uses a lot of tripods, and then my unseasoned DPs use a lot of handheld gimbal.
Sure.
Now I know why you use dollies. I can watch a low budget movie and can tell you what lenses they shot on. And I always look and go, this was completely shot on the 50 millimeter lens. They only had one lens. Right.
Sure.
So my more seasoned DP usually has 5 lenses, and he will change them out like clockwork. If you're using a gimbal, every time you use a gimbal, it's 30 to 45 minutes to reset a gimbal.
Sure.
So unless you had a gimbal for every lens, so you can kind of tell what kind of DP you have based off of that. But for the money and whatever, I still say for all these shots, get yourself
a dolly.
a tribe. You can buy these little things that go on a tripod, and you can run 2 PVC pipes.
Yeah, I've got.
And go real quick.
I bought a book way back when I was in college doing for video production, and one of the books that I bought just on my own, one of the first hints was yeah, here's how to make a very low budget dolly. Get some PVC pipe, cut it in half, get a board with some casters on it, and mount a tripod on it. And
That's
there
what I
you go.
do. That's what I do, and I give 0 shits of what people say, because they always go, "Here comes Whitman and his makeshift dolly."
But it works, and it still looks great. So
yeah, I mean, Unnatural was shot on a piece of plywood that was 3 foot by 4 foot, shot on PVC pipe. It's just what you do.
Oh, I love it.
The history of it is that we didn't have a focus puller, so DP was pulling focus while he was moving it. I'm like, damn.
That's some talent there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Omo does have a master's degree in cinematography from SCAD, so he knows what he's doing. But once again, the first thing I would teach anyone DPing is make sure you just have those shots, and make sure you have a minimum of 3 lenses.
Right.
Depth of field is big. Now, that being said, I can tell you this right now. There's a company out of England that sells a depth of field slicer. Like, they can, if something's well lit, it'll slice it into 10 areas.
Wow.
And you can put a fake camera lens on it now. So you technically could shoot all 50 millimeter, but in editing, you'll have to slice it and then put the lenses on that you want for the depth of field.
Sure.
So I used to, again, say, hey, we're going to use a lot of lenses on this. I'm not for sure in 2 years if that's even going to be the deal.
It's
of course it's best to do traditional, but
you got to work within your budget too. So I mean, you can do traditional, but you also got to work in your budget and time frame as well. And if the tools are out there,
well, a $99 tool versus 10,000 in lenses.
Yeah. There you go.
And I mean, we're probably 10 years away from full AI movies.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say we got a little time because we still got 6-fingered missing people and limbs and such from the full AI films.
Well, the main thing that we got, once again, where you're going to use the AI is to enhance how you put them out. So
this has been great. I've learned some things as well, and we got to talk about your 2 films that are out on VOD now or coming out. Homeless for the Holidays.
Actually, Homeless is going to come out on everything all at once. My distributor's
Oh,
doing
is
something
it?
different. It's going to be VOD and AdVod.
Oh,
So it's going
nice.
to come out on Tubi and
Mhm.
a few other places. So they're going to see how it does. The interesting thing about a holiday movie is every year is a new chance.
Sure. Oh yeah, yeah. Every year you come around it.
Unnatural gets released. It's only going to get another bump every time a new sequel comes out.
Sure.
But
But
as far as Homeless for the Holidays, at least for another 15 years, every Christmas is a
every Christmas.
So, so my thing is if I could ask you a couple questions
Yeah,
before
sure.
did you like the fact that they were two different movies? Is it nice to see somebody who goes, no, I hate doing the same thing?
I like the fact I like seeing filmmakers do a variety of different films. I mean, we see that with Fred Olen Ray, who has done that, who, he's done the campy, Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, but then he's also done a family holiday movie with a dog, with a cat. He's done many different films, and I like that. I like seeing the diversity. I like seeing directors do something different. And in your case, and I'm not saying it just because you're here, it works for both. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but it's still interesting to see how a director, especially one who might be known for one type of genre, suddenly breaks into another, and you're just like, oh, that was them? Wow, okay. You
Yeah.
know, and it keeps things interesting for sure.
Yeah, the next one was I think is coming out is called Murder by Association.
Mhm.
It's my twist on a murder mystery.
Oh, nice.
And then I have 12 to Dawn, which is my version of Squid Games, only with vampires. Like
Oh, nice.
all the
Nice.
all the wannabes come in and have to
Mhm.
survive trials to be a vampire by morning.
Oh, that's exciting.
And then I have one called Love Zombies, which I shot several years ago.
Mm.
And it's a post-apocalyptic love story set in
A zombie world.
zombie
Sure.
apocalypse.
Sure.
And then we shot Unnatural 2, which is totally different from Unnatural 1.
Mm.
Same characters though. It's more of an action flick.
Oh, okay.
And Unnatural 3 I'm working on right now, and it'll be a post-apocalyptic Western.
Nice.
And then I shot the wrestling movie, which is 14 songs. And I'm about to film Smokey in January. And that is about a bunch of people that come to a group therapy session for their marriage. And the person running it gets them all high. And one of them brings out a Ouija board and summons the weed demon. And they basically say, don't think of anything. And they won't show up.
Yeah.
And they do. And they were all in these blow up bear costumes. So they have a blow up bear running around trying to kill them all. And
Oh,
and that's my horror comedy.
sure.
And then in development, I have Protect the Block, which is a post-apocalyptic old folks home that protects themselves against bikers when the world falls.
Oh.
And they have a bunch of bikers to tell them what to do. And then my year off project is Unmortal, which is a it's a fantasy TV series that I'll probably have to shoot as movies though. But I've written 18 episodes.
Wow. Impressive.
So we'll probably shoot a season at a time. And it's a little bit different. It is a redemption story. And every time the character dies, he goes back into his own timeline.
Oh, neat. Oh, those are always fun.
So it's like Dungeons and Dragons meets Benjamin Button.
So, that sounds very exciting. I look forward to all of those, Whit, and I'd love to have you back when a couple of those projects are out. I know you're a very busy man. It sounds like it, but this has been very enjoyable. And where can they follow your stuff at to keep up with all of these wonderful projects you got coming?
LittleMonstersEntertainment.com, LittleMonsterEntertainment.com. And And then on Facebook, you can find me and follow me. I've got about 20,000 followers. And I do have a place called the Filmmakers Resource on Facebook, where I write articles and tell people about everything. I don't, everyone tries to make money by coaching, and that's not what I'm at in life. I tell people, like, you can go onto my film resource and find out budgets, how much I spend, all the new technology coming out, and what's the difference between Hollywood movie versus independent movie. I try to give everyone my perspective on everything so that they have an even playground. The problem with Hollywood is people don't know what the rules are.
Right.
And so they come in, they're very naive. And so I go, whether you like it or not, this is how these things really are. This is how you're going to get screwed. This is why you're not going to make money. And I cover everything from the actor's point of view. Like the average actors in Hollywood, or the average, person working in Hollywood is 28.
Wow.
So when you decide at 42 that you want to get into this,
good luck.
odds are really low. And so you do have to make waves or something along that line.
Sure.
I mean, it's not impossible. Some
No.
people start acting until they're 50 or 60, but
You were mentioning you coordinated Gen Con. I went to the 93 Gen Con in downtown Milwaukee.
yeah. If you remember Guar, I brought Guar. Yeah.
I remember Guar being there. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
awesome.
My boss thought I'd get fired for bringing him. But then it backfired because it went really well.
It went really well. Yeah. It was Guar. Yeah. How could it not? So
yeah. Well, I mean, we did have to ask him to take the penises off the wall.
Oh, well, there is that. There is that.
But it was still fun. And other than that, thank you for having me on your show, and appreciate everything about you. And
thank you, sir.
Sorry about this calling you out on your CGI.
No, by all means. It's not the first time I've been called out, so I appreciate.
When I go back to read it again, and it's like, where did it go?
Yeah, suddenly, no, I'll leave it. I'll leave my mistake up there. Well, I thank you, though.
Oh, you just rewrite it and go. That real blood looked like CGI.
The real blood looked like CGI. I could add a sentence in there, absolutely. So,
by the way, so thumbs up on both of them. I mean, you
yeah. A little spoiler. Yes, I enjoyed Homeless for the holidays. I enjoyed that one very much as well. So, and that review will be up later this week. That'll probably be a video review, but I'll send you the link for all that. And yeah, folks, check out Whit Whitman's stuff. The Unnatural. And you also got, Homeless for the Holidays, as well as the other work, and all the links and stuff will be in the body of this podcast interview. So check it out. And go grab a camera and go shoot something. And then, you can learn something from Whit. I learned plenty today. So thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Your town has a problem.
And what is that, Mr. Remington?
Your town has vampires.
I would think that only children would believe in fairy tales.
I just thought I'd come over here and see how thick your skull really is. I'd rethink that if I was you.
I'd highly recommend you don't go messing with something that ain't got nothing to do with you. I'm on a mission from God. We fight for the people and stand for what's right. I'm gonna need some garlic. I'm gonna need some wooden sticks.
There's something strange about those three.
Don't want to die today? I'd suggest you get the hell out.
You don't know how much power he has over these people. They would die for him.
The undead don't make deals with the living.
I'm here to save this town's ass. What I want, what I need, is to kill vampires.
Never corner something meaner than you.
Sometimes you can't predict what evil's gonna do. Go to hell.
If you go in there, you're gonna die.
Probably.